Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile. With me again, Lazio Braveheart, Alistair McKenzie. Alistair, how are you?
Not quite so chirpy this week. It's been a difficult day. Didn't manage to sleep much last night, and then I thought at least Lazio are starting the season. That'll give me a boost at the end of the weekend against Spal at home, but clearly not. And it's what a difference a week makes, because recording this show 7 days ago, we were absolutely on cloud nine after beating Juventus, and now we failed at home to get a result against one of the newly promoted teams, and plenty. We'll get into it, but plenty of kind of worrying aspects to that, to what we've just seen.
Do you think that the players thought this was an easy match and didn't perform or prepare the match as well as they did last Sunday against Juventus?
I wonder if I doubt they would underestimate Spal, because I doubt that Inzaghi would let them do that. But I do wonder if the kind of significance of finally beating Juventus maybe made them a bit overconfident ahead of this, because it was more or less the same team, wasn't it, that played against Juventus, and they're at home. And Spal, are probably, you would have thought, one of the weaker sides in the league, although I was very impressed with their organisation. But you cannot, know exactly what to expect against a team like this. You know they're going to sit deep, keep it very compact. And the whole team just looked tired. They looked tired. They looked like they've been celebrating beating Juventus all week long, and perhaps finally getting that monkey off the back of ending that long run of disappointing results against Juve made them kind of think that this would be a game they'd be able to win quite easily.
I don't know if you're right when you say they were tired. They were only the Lazio played pretty much the same team, except Lucas Leiva, Palombi played in his place. But yeah, they didn't run like they did last Sunday. So maybe, I don't know, it was too hot, so they couldn't recover well enough. But they weren't running a lot like they did last Sunday. They were a little bit too static. I thought even that they were too much concentrated in the middle of the pitch instead of, trying to wide the pitch, attacking on both sides. Instead, Lulic and Basta, Milinkovic, Palombi, they were all attacking from the center, and that helped a lot Spal when they had to defend. So,
one of the games that, one of the words that stuck out from last week's performance was the intensity. That was something I mentioned last week, and they really, put Juventus under pressure very early on, and there was a real sense of urgency about them. So I don't mean necessarily that I thought the team are physically worn out already. I just think it had a kind of really lethargic pace to the game. And that often happens in these games against a team that's only trying to avoid conceding, really. But yeah, that's to be expected. And you're right, I think it was far too funneled down the middle. And because Spal were, mirroring Lazio's system, they found it far too easy to kind of soak up that pressure. And by the time the full-time whistle was blown, you could even argue, despite Lazio having far more chances on the kind of statistics board, Spal actually perhaps had the better chances to actually win the game in the end. Particularly one of their set pieces early on, they probably should have scored from that when they had a free shot from about 18 yards out. But, Lazio, I was just saying to you before we came on, I was getting kind of flashbacks of the game against Chievo last season while we were watching this, when we absolutely, battered them throughout the whole game and then conceded a goal late on. So at least that's not happened this time, and we have got 1 point. But, we've got far bigger challenges coming up very soon. and it comes back to the same problem, really, like we've talked about time and time again, of not really having enough squad depth. And if it's already an issue now, it's only going to get worse over the season.
Yes, I agree. We all thought at the end that Spal would score, because this is what usually happens to Lazio when they don't score against a small team. They attack 90 minutes, and then last chance, last minute, the opposite team scores in a counter-attack. Luckily, this time didn't happen. But let's be honest, it's 1 point against Spal at home. Doesn't change that much. Even if you lose, it wouldn't be a big difference. So I'm really disappointed. To be honest, we said it last week after the victory in Supercoppa Italiana that Lazio needed other bodies, especially in front, where without Keita, with Felipe Anderson injured, they needed someone better. I'm really sorry, because I thought, and I told you a lot of time, that I thought that Palombi was able to perform. Today he started. This means that Inzaghi trusted him, but I have to be honest, he didn't do pretty much nothing. And as well, I thought, you're making your debut on Serie A, you're making your debut with your favorite team, etc. You should be flying all around the pitch. I didn't see him running.
Why do you think that wasn't? Do you think it's just something as simple as him being nervous about the occasion?
I hope it's that, because if it's not that, if that's the player, then that's not a player I remember seeing last year at Ternana. He didn't do pretty much nothing. It's true, I don't know if you noticed, that the other players didn't pass him that much the ball. Maybe we're going to talk later about this. I thought Immobile wanted to win the match all on his own. And I don't know if he did this because he didn't trust Palombi, or just because after scoring 2 goals against Juventus, he was thinking he was able to beat Spal alone. But yeah, till Palombi was in the pitch, Lazio pretty much was 10 men. So that's tough in Serie A.
Yeah, it is a shame that he was given this opportunity. It's just a real sign of faith, like you say, from Inzaghi to start him in the first game of the season. When you've got someone like Caicedo, who's got experience and is a new signing on the bench. Caicedo, we finally got to see him, not for very long, so he didn't really do much apart from give away a foul from kicking someone in the head. But I thought, to be honest, a game like this was absolutely crying out for Jordan Lukaku and Adam Maricic, and I was disappointed it took Inzaghi as long as it did to introduce them. I expect, or I have a feeling that the reason for that maybe is because Lucas Leiva wasn't involved today, so perhaps he'd be a bit worried about how their attacking instincts might leave us a bit short at the back. But Maricic, I thought when he came on, like you were saying about Immobile trying to win the game all by himself, I think Maricic, because he had impressed people in pre-season, he came on today and want to be the guy who ended up in the headlines tomorrow, and he kept trying to do things himself when he had better options as well, and that was a bit of a disappointment. So I don't know, I mean, you say that it doesn't really matter, if it's 1 point or no points, but the fact of the matter is, to actually have a chance of getting in the top 4 this year, you need to win your home games against teams like Spal.
Absolutely.
We said at the start, you couldn't have hoped for a better opening day game, and now we've got far harder matches ahead. And Chievo next weekend, Vittorio, is probably going to be a very similar kind of challenge. You know what they're like. It's going to be, if anything, an even more organised team.
Yeah, and you were saying correctly about Marusic. Again, I think everybody was waiting for Lukaku to come in. As you said, I think Inzaghi wanted to wait it, and we talked about this already in the past in the other podcast, with Luis Alberto playing in the position of Lucas Leiva, with Milinkovic and Parolo near him. I fear that Inzaghi thinks that the midfielder is too offensive if you add Lukaku and Marusic as well. So that's why they enter the pitch very late. But I thought they could be the key to solve this match because Lazio was attacking too much in the center. With those two, you could open a little bit more the pitch and create more occasion, maybe put a couple of good cross to Milinkovic, which happened, but not as much as I expected. And as you were saying, Marusic again came in and tried to solve the match on his own. There was a situation where he shot on target, a very average shot, where in the box there were at least three Lazio players, like Immobile, Milinkovic, and Luis Alberto probably. You know, from there, if you put it on the trying to serve Milinkovic for a header, I thought that was a much better chance that he's shooting from there. So again, I don't know if it was because players wanted to win the match on their own to prove that they are quality players, or they got a little bit too chaotic, seeing that they weren't able to score immediately against Spal. But they didn't play as a team, and that was, I think, the reason why Lazio didn't win today. Luis Alberto did a lot of nice things, but all the time he tried to finish it instead of maybe passing the ball to someone free. And Immobile did it a lot of time, etc. So when you play like this against an organized team, even if it's an average team like Spal, then it's going to be really, really complicated to score. And in the few chances you have, then the goalkeeper makes a couple of decent saves, then that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, so something I was concerned to see was the fact that the players seemed to... You're right, they didn't play as a team tonight, and they seemed to get more frustrated as time went on. And you saw quite a few shots from distance, very few of which would hit the target. And when you're shooting from distance, generally it's out of frustration, unless you're very confident and know your own ability. But I think that frustration that you saw from the players as chance after chance came and went is quite a worrying thing, because this is going to happen again this season. We know this is going to happen. It's probably going to happen again next weekend. In Serie A, it's often a game of chess, and you have to be extremely patient. And I was kind of encouraged in the first half because Lazio started very badly. But by the time half-time arrived, I thought they'd managed to finally start to open up Spal a little bit more, start to play their own game and to dictate the game a bit and create a few more chances. So I thought if they carried along the same line that they'd finished the first half with, that they would eventually manage to break down the door. So I think as the game went on, yes, Spal would be time wasting. That would annoy people. Yes, there would be people like Marusic, the chance you just mentioned there, taking the wrong option. But the kind of reaction from the rest of the players when these things happened wasn't great. They all looked so annoyed with one another, really. And we really have to get them to have the belief that it will come, I suppose. I mean, I don't know how you do that, but today it seemed like they were a bit too, because it was such a different game to last weekend, they were a bit too kind of impatient to make it happen.
I think that Lazio miss Lucas Leiva not as much for the position he's playing, but more as a leader, like someone who guides the team with his experience and his behavior. I thought Luis Alberto didn't play badly, but it's not a leader, and we miss someone there in the midfield. So I thought that was an important player that missed today. To be honest, as you were saying, Lazio started really, really bad the first 10-15 minutes, then start to play better, start to create chances. In the second half, Spal didn't have a chance until the last 5-7 minutes. I think they hardly passed the half line for all the second half. So Lazio was pushing a lot, But as we were saying, a little bit too slow, not a lot of players running around to create space, and always attacking in the same way. So this made it very easy to Spal to defend. But again, if you see, for example, Roma today against Atalanta, Roma didn't deserve to win and won thanks to an episode. That was something that missed with Lazio. Napoli yesterday scored on an own goal that was really embarrassing. So, of course, you have to be even a little bit lucky. But, I don't know. Probably they were missing a leader to calm down a little bit the players that look really, really, really frustrated just after the first half. And you know, this type of match, especially if you don't score immediately, then you're going to struggle throughout all the match. So,
yeah, and Lulic is obviously on the pitch, and so is Parolo. So you'd hope that within that midfield there is enough leadership. But Lulic, I thought was really poor today. Actually, I mean, he's just can be so wasteful with the ball sometimes, and he gave it away. I don't even know how many times. I don't think he'll want to have a look at his pass completion rate for this evening, but he's not the only one. I agree. Lucas not only has leadership, but he has that kind of calming presence, and when he's right in there and he's capable of taking the ball and moving it on and protecting it, and he's someone who seems to know what the right move is at any particular moment. So he will be a big miss for Lazio while he is out injured, and that's something that I don't know. I mean, there's 10, 11 days left in the market now. So, do you think it's serious enough to consider actually bringing in another midfielder before the end of the market?
So, before we talk, Tare just after the match talk, and he said that he doesn't believe Keita will come back to Formello for training, and that Hoedt asked to leave and he asked to play in the Premier League. He said that they are closing the deal now, so Hoedt will leave Lazio next week. Asked if there will be some replacement for Keita and Hoedt, he said, "We'll see. There are still 10 days before the transfer market close." So,
well, you would really hope that the guys who are going out will at least be replaced, but I don't know. I still think that the midfield probably could do with another body in there.
Were you expecting Murgia to play today?
I wouldn't. I don't know. I mean, I would have liked to see it just because he was the hero last weekend, and his confidence and his enthusiasm must be higher than it's ever been right now. So I think. I don't know, like I said before, I don't think Inzaghi got it completely right this evening. I think he was a bit slow to react. I think the changes he made weren't necessarily the right ones. I think you can see why he brought Caicedo on, but he didn't really make any sort of impact.
No, he's not ready.
The time that he brought on Lukaku and Marasic, they had about 25 minutes to get into the game, by which point Spal were already pretty well comfortable in how they were defending. And, them coming on, it didn't result in a change of shape. I was wondering if we were going to see a shift to the kind of 4-3-3 system from last season, which didn't happen. And as time goes on, it looks less and less likely that Lazio are going to be a kind of tactically flexible team. And instead it is going to be down to them to find a way of making it work with that one system. And well, I mean, obviously they shift it around as the game goes on, but it's more or less that 3-5-2 shape most of the time.
Well, I don't know if you agree, but I think the problem about changing the formation today was that he didn't have any option in front. You had Palombi, Caicedo that you can see wasn't fit, so you could bring in Lombardi and play 4-3-3, but who do you put on the other side? Luis Alberto, and then you play with Milinkovic, Parolo, Lulic in the midfield. I think today you really saw how Lazio struggled with three key players out. Lucas Leiva should be a starter. Felipe Anderson and Keita should be considered a starter. So you can see that really Inzaghi didn't have any options. And again, you bought Di Gennaro, but he's not playing. And I think Di Gennaro is the real only original replacement for Biglia. I think Murgia cannot play there. Leiva, it's a similar player. But for example, you could see it today. Luis Alberto, it's more a trequartista than a playmaker. He has a lot of talent, etc. But I don't think is that his position. So I hope really in these days Lazio sign at least two players because they need it. And especially Hoedt leaves, then you need to buy a defender.
Well, just before we get on to the transfer stuff, we've got a couple of comments from people who are writing into us just about the game, so I thought I'd read those out. Rami Algeni said it's a very frustrating game, not a good performance in midfield, was shocking, which sounds like we agree with. Palombi was a ghost, good description. Inzaghi got it very wrong, very disappointing start. And Sean McIntosh has said that the Supercoppa has masked the deficiencies. Need to find a suitable replacement for Keita. There was a lack of spark and pace. Anderson gives us that when he's healthy, but having both Keita and Felipe made us dangerous. And I think he's absolutely right there in that was one of Lazio's weapons last season, was having those two guys both available in the squad, and having Anderson unavailable so early in the season is going to, it has kind of shined a bit of a light on the fact that it is such a thin squad still, and when the Europa League kicks in, that's going to become more and more of a problem. I'm sounding like a broken record because I say this every time, but I think with the transfer market still open, and after tonight's result, you could maybe possibly even say it could end up being a good thing. Trying desperately to put a positive spin on this. If Tari and Lotito watch this game tonight, they should surely be able to recognise that there's more needed, especially like you say with Hoedt and Keita going out. So we'll have to see what happens. It's probably going to be quite a busy 10 days, I think.
I hope so. I was thinking the opposite after Sunday. I was concerned that, after beating Juventus in the final, Lotito and Taro could say, hey, this team is great, we don't need to buy anybody. So after today, I hope they realize that this team is not where it should be. And Lotito gave an interview this week to Corriere della Sera saying, Scudetto, why not? Well, it's not possible at the moment, at least not with this team. So if you want to win it, you need to buy a couple of good players. And again, Tare said that he's not disappointed that Hoedt has to leave, but then you're going to struggle even in the defense. So you need to buy at least a couple of players, talk with Inzaghi, hear what he needs, because especially in front, I thought today in the second half Inzaghi didn't have any option to change things. I think Casado wasn't not fit, and you can see it today. So that's why Palombi played that much.
Well, something I saw them do, which I wonder if it was Inzaghi's kind of plan or if it just happened to happen, but something Caicedo can do, which other kind of options around there, like Luis Alberto, for example, playing alongside Immobile, couldn't do this, was when they got more desperate for a goal at the end of the game, and say Parolo, I think on occasion, picked up the ball quite deep, and he would go long, which is something Lazio don't tend to like doing because they're not going to win that many balls in the air because there aren't too many big players in the team. But Caicedo, he can actually get the flick on. He wins the ball in the air and he flicked it over the shoulder for Immobile to chase, and that kind of suits Immobile's game down to a T in terms of running on to meet those kind of flick-ons. And it didn't work tonight, but you can see a certain use for Caicedo that's not necessarily going to be him scoring 10, 15 goals a season. I find that very unlikely to happen, but he does give you something else when he comes on, in that he's more physical and he will be able to win balls in the air to actually feed the more dangerous strikers in the team, perhaps. But yeah, like we've just been saying, that's without another striker who can score those goals, you're in trouble. And you know, we've already discussed the fact that with Anderson out, you lose a lot in the team. What happens if Immobile gets injured tomorrow? And
yeah, we don't have options. We don't have options.
You've got Caicedo, you've got Palombi, and that's about it. So
yeah, and we saw it today. Unfortunately, I don't know if it was because he was just too excited, but he didn't touch a ball, Palombi, today. Really none. So he's, I don't know if he was couldn't handle the pressure this time, but remembering the debut of Lombardi last year, this was completely different, and it wasn't the performance I expected. What was the man of the match for you, talking about Lazio today?
I hadn't even considered thinking about that, to be honest. I thought Radu had quite a good game. Not that he had an awful lot to do. He made an important block later on, and he was pretty composed on the ball. I thought
De Vrij as well was excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. We have to say, on the positive side, that it looks like the defense have improved a lot. It's true that we allowed 2 goals against Juventus, but it was all from free kicks.
Yeah.
And apart the first 10 minutes in the first against Juventus, they didn't have that much chances. And as well today against Spal. Now you're going to say, well, Spal is not a tough team. But remember that Floccari and Borriello pretty much scores every time they see Lazio. So every time they play against Lazio, they scored. And so this was probably the first time they didn't. And I think pretty much of the reason why was De Vrij, Radu playing incredibly well. You know what I think about Radu? I think the more he gets near the penalty box, the more he's dangerous. But today he was perfect. And I think he played a really, really good match as well with De Vrij. The problem was midfield and forward that didn't live up to the expectation.
It was just very sloppy. I think there was just far too many missed passes, and not even when it's you could credit Spal for putting Lazio under pressure and so on, but not even when Lazio were under pressure, they were just giving the ball away far too cheaply. I don't know why that is. I mean, all we can do really is hope that there's a reaction next weekend, because once the Chievo game is out of the way, it's Milan, Genoa away, which is always a problem, and then Napoli. So that's a tricky run of games. And we were saying, I remember saying, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but talking about the fact that Inzaghi has earned trust in terms of the fact that if Lazio go on a bad run, there's no way he should be sacked, because he has to be given the kind of trust to make do with the resources he's got. While we were talking about this, everything was very happy at Lazio land, and we didn't really expect that was very likely to happen. But if this season does get off to a really bad start, which I'm hoping it doesn't, but you can see how it potentially could, then let's hope that people don't start pointing the finger at Inzaghi, because he has been unlucky with injuries, and he has been unlucky with the way the Keita situation has developed, and he does need more players really to be able to get the best out of the team. So,
and you have to be honest, he said it yesterday in the press conference before the match. He said if Hoedt leaves, and it looks like he's going to leave, he needs another defender, and he said he wants a left foot defender, so Paletta should be out. I hope so, because he's right foot. And as well said that if Keita doesn't come back, which looks really hard to believe, and even Tare said, I don't think he's going to come back to train again. He said Lazio need another player there. So I think in this next days, I don't think he's going to wait 10 days. He's going to push and ask for the Tare to sign these players because you really need them. You really need them. And today you found out, you notice. Of course, Felipe Anderson is a very talented player and he can change the matches, but no one can expect to see him playing all season long. And unfortunately, with the Europe League, there's going to be more injured player. So you have to have more option everywhere.
Well, one of the questions we've had is from Martin Jones, who's asking if there's any news of any new signings coming our way. All the news tends to be about players who are going out the way, and then in terms of stuff coming in the way, it's more rumours than anything else, I suppose. But you mentioned Paletta there. He is one who's been, talked about as a potential replacement for Wesley Hoedt, but that seems all wrong to me. I mean, that's an interesting point you make there, that he's the wrong foot. So, would you agree with that? You're not happy with him joining Lazio? I mean, but the thing for me is that if you're but if you're selling one of our kind of more up-and-coming younger players, you don't want to replace him with someone who's at the end of their career. Above anything else, really.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And the other thing Inzaghi was saying is that Hoedt was given the option to change because his left foot, he can be the playmaker, a little bit like Bonucci. He can help Lazio to switch to 4 defender. So you have various options that Hoedt gives you. If you get Paletta, forget that he's performed really bad in the last 2-3 years, but he's right foot, so this means that apart from Rado, you don't have another left foot defender, so you cannot play with 4 defenders, because if Rado slides to the left, then you're going to have 2 center right foot defender, which is going to create confusion, etc. So it's good for me that Inzaghi said it, because now if Lazio get a right foot defender, then you know that Inzaghi won't be happy. He's not happy.
Yeah, what do you think of selling Wesley Hoedt? It seems to have. There were rumours earlier this summer, but it seems to have come quite quickly in terms of the development of this deal. For me, he improved a lot last season, but if you're being offered that amount of money, 17 million euros, that's a pretty good price for him, I'd say. I got asked about this earlier this week from a Southampton fan who was basically asking if it's value for money. And my response was basically that for a Premier League club, spending 17 million on a 23-year-old centre-back is, it's not an awful lot of money for them to be spending. But for Lazio, that's the only way they could have really hoped to get that much money for someone like Wesley Hoedt. He's improving, but he's still far from the finished article. And I think the thing that surprised me about this is that he said the reason he wants to leave is that he wants to play every week. Well, you're not going to play every week in Southampton.
Well, maybe there, yes.
I'm not convinced. I don't think he's going to walk into that Southampton team and be playing every week. I'd be very surprised if he is. And he's also moving from a team that has a system where 3 centre-backs are used and is playing in 3 competitions. So if he stays at Lazio, he's going to play a lot of football this season. Yes, maybe he's not going to be the first choice for the big games, but he's still going to get a lot of games under Inzaghi this year. He will know himself how much he improved last year from his first season, which was at times a bit of a nightmare for him. So I think for his own personal development, I really would have, even trying to take my Lazio bias away from it, would have suggested that he would stay where he is for another year to actually kind of improve his own game, because the one thing we know about the Premier League is that it's an extremely fast and physical league. And yes, he's got the physicality, but he doesn't have the mobility. That's the biggest weakness to his game, is his lack of pace, and that he's can get exposed quite quickly by fast players. And he's going to come up against a lot more of them in the Premier League than he is in Serie A. I'm not convinced it's going to be a very successful move for him. But who knows? Maybe prove me wrong.
I agree. I was a little bit surprised, honestly, because I thought at the beginning it was Lazio that wanted to sell him, and then when I found out that it's Hoedt that wants to leave, then really didn't make that much sense. He was probably the defender that played more last season with Inzaghi, and I can see Lazio selling him for that price. That makes sense for Lazio. But would you really leave Lazio to go to Southampton? I can imagine you're getting a better wage, but the chance you qualify for a European tournament at Southampton will be very, very less chance than with Lazio. So, and there's the risk he's going to lose the national squad if he doesn't play for a big team. So, but this is what Inzaghi said. He wants to play every match. Tare said he wants to play in the Premier League. So I think he still had time to improve. He still needed to stay with Lazio to improve. But hey, this is his choice. My concern is that Lazio find a good replacement for him.
Yeah, and it's quite refreshing to see a deal just being done. There's no real. This isn't being dragged out too much. It's more a case of a club's interested. They pay a price that Lotito's happy with, and we move on. And after this summer, it's quite easy to forget that can happen sometimes, and that's the way that deals are supposed to be done. In terms of Keita, I mean, I said this last week, but I'll say it again. I'm very concerned that with so little time in the market, it's going to be a panic buy, and Lazio are going to end up overspending for someone who's probably not at the same level as Keita is. Who that is, I'm still completely oblivious to. Don't know if your sources have got anything for us, Vittorio, but I really can't think at this point who's going to be able to fill that gap in the squad.
I don't know, and I think that Lazio is, before willing to understand what's happened with Keita, I think both Lotito and Tare will know that probably they're not going to sell the player this summer. So I don't know if they're willing to spend to find a replacement, which is really worrying. So that will change a lot of things. But the thing I don't understand is they made the money from Biglia, and they still didn't use it. So especially if Hoedt leaves, they will have like 30 million euros to spend, which it's a good amount of money to buy a very good striker. But at the moment, there's nothing about this. So we saw it today. Lazio need another player there, especially if Palombi don't start performing. So I'm a little bit concerned, honestly, because Tare didn't say nothing special, didn't say you are going to buy the replacement of these two players, etc. In the interview Lotito gave this week, it looks like Caicedo was the replacement for Keita, which is worrying because you don't have to forget that Djordjevic as well is out of the squad. So last year, even if he wasn't a great striker, Djordjevic was was still in the squad and was playing when needed. So you are 2 men down. Yeah.
As each day passes, Djordjevic is starting more and more to look like Neymar, to be honest. Yeah, I think as you don't see him on the pitch for longer, you start to remember the glory days of Djordjevic actually scoring goals when he first arrived. But yeah, no, you're right. It's crazy to have these, these guys who are still on the payroll of the club who just aren't involved in the matchday squad, I suppose. I've just seen as we're doing this, there's some post-match stuff rolling in, and seen some comments from Wallace after the game, who's admitted, basically saying that the final ball wasn't there and that they're really missing Felipe Anderson. So it's kind of worrying almost to hear one of the players admit that they're kind of dependent on one player so much to actually provide that asset to the game, because when Anderson isn't around, who's going to do it? And that's a question that's kind of been raised by tonight's game, I suppose, more than we would have liked.
They were hoping Luis Alberto would provide more assists. He played a little bit too much on his own. One thing, I don't know if you saw the match, but Petagna played so badly. Again, I'm so happy he didn't sign for Lazio. He's not a striker. He's terrible. He's a defender. He's not able to score. And when his name was linked to Lazio, I was so concerned. He played really, really bad, and he's worse than Djordjevic, if we have to say. At least Djordjevic sometimes scores. He's terrible.
Well, I'll tell you what as well. I was watching some of the Atalanta-Roma game earlier, and just seeing Papu Gomez and how much quality that guy's got. And it seems like an absolute lifetime ago that we were being linked with him and Luis Muriel, but you do think really could have done what difference that could have made over the summer if Lazio had really pushed to get that deal done and it had gone ahead that early in the summer, what a difference that would make by now. But here we are again, waiting for deals to be done right at the end.
And Gomez said that Lazio made an offer for him and he refused to stay to play with Atalanta. And I was watching that match and said, Gomez, this is your choice. You're playing with nobody near you. You have a striker that is awful. Imagine you could be playing near Immobile. Imagine how many goals would you score, how many chances you would create, and how many trophies you could compete for. Instead, with this Atalanta, you're going to struggle to get in the top 8. So, and it's all your decision, Probably you made the wrong one this time.
Yeah, I still think Atalanta will do all right, and it's probably just the fact that he's going to be, he's a club legend essentially now, and he's taking them into Europe, and you can understand the kind of emotional ties that have kept him at the club. But from a Lazio perspective as well, you imagine there is, like you say, there's such an obvious argument to try and convince him to come to Rome. So just one of these days, it would be very nice to get that kind of quality of deal done very early. And obviously we were happy that Lucas Leiva came in straight after Lucas Biglia went, but that was a kind of obvious move that needed to be made at some point anyway. So they can't really point to that and say it's been a successful transfer campaign. There still needs a lot more to be done. But before we kind of wrap it up for today, though, I was wanting to ask you about next weekend's game against Chievo. I suppose they've managed to get a win on their opening day against Udinese away, which is a pretty good result really for them. Do you think, is there anything more for us to expect from this than what we normally get against Chievo? It's more or less the same team this season than they had last season, so
it's always the same team.
They never really change. They're always going to have some kind of grizzled old defenders who are giving you a hard time, be very hard to break down and so on. But they do, and guys like Walter Biersa and Inglese's a decent striker too, they do actually have some kind of dangerous players there. So this is a game that Lazio, in my opinion, now really have to go and win. I hope that they go into that game with the same kind of intensity and enthusiasm with which they came onto the pitch against Juventus last weekend, because if that goes wrong, then things can start to fall apart quite quickly. So as long as they can prove that today was a blip, it was still a game they dominated even if they didn't win it. So if they can bounce back and get a good result against Chievo, then that'd be fantastic. It's just, after tonight, I don't know how easy that's going to be, given that Chievo are probably, if anything, more defensively disciplined than Spal are.
Well, you have to think that Inzaghi will study the match and will analyze what didn't work this week. So probably he knows that Palombi is not ready. Probably next time, instead of playing Luis Alberto there, he will try Murcia first. And I hope that he didn't call Felipe Anderson and Lucas Leiva because he wanted them to be fit for next match. So I really hope that they will be able to play next match against Chievo, because we all know that it's going to be a tough match, and that you need the best squad against Chievo, because it's going to be a very difficult match. You know it already, and they have to play again as a team, and maybe Lucas Leiva back, Murcia probably will have more chance. That could change a lot of things.
Would you be wanting to go into this game with kind of Lukaku or Maricic or both from the start?
Well, it depends again who plays. I would give a go to Murcia starting. Maybe try, if Luka Leiva is fit, then I will try Murcia, Lucas Leiva and Milinkovic probably, with Luis Alberto near to Immobile if Felipe Anderson is not fit. That could be an option. But yeah, again, you don't have too many options. That's the biggest problem. If Felipe Anderson is not fit, then who play near Immobile? You have only Luis Alberto or Casado that doesn't look very fit. So, but I would trust a little bit Murcia, and maybe you have Palombi you have Lombardi that with this 3-5-2 it's going to be complicated to see him play. He played in the last friendly and in the two striker, but he's more a winger, so I don't know. Anyway, there are some quotes of Inzaghi saying that Hoedt will leave tomorrow and him and Keita will have to be replaced. So he put it clear. Let's see if Taren Lotito will follow what he asked. Yeah,
well, let's hope so.
Yeah.
At least they've got something concrete now to kind of point to that as being something that absolutely must happen before it's too late, because the clock is ticking.
And don't forget that all the big team won today, so this already tells you that it's going to be tough to reach the top 6 position. So you cannot allow to lose points now against small team, because you cannot expect to go and beat Milan or Inter that easy.
Yeah, it promises to be a really interesting Serie A season, and it'll be, obviously the two Milan clubs both got good results today as well, but yeah, it'll be intriguing week by week to see if they can actually manage to keep that up consistently. It's it's an interesting start to the season in terms of the fixture list, with Inter playing Fiorentina, and that's another team we don't really know what to expect from as well. Fiorentina have had so many changes this season, this summer. So yeah, like you say, it's going to be really hard to get into those European positions. So anyway, we'll be back next week with far more positivity, because Lazio will have conquered Chievo convincingly.
Well, Traditionally, Lazio win at Verona and lose it at home against Chievo. So we're playing away. So
so it's fine then.
yeah, should be. But you still didn't tell me who was the man of the match for you.
Oh, right. If I had to be one, possibly, I don't know. It's not an easy decision today. I'd possibly say Luis Alberto, just because I think he was the one guy in midfield who tried to be the most positive, and we talked about the guys in defence who have good games today, but they didn't necessarily have an awful lot to deal with. So in terms of Luis Alberto, he showed his versatility by starting in the deep position, the playmaker role, and then moving up alongside Immobile later on. Yes, he didn't light up the game. He didn't have a decisive impact on it, but he was always kind of available. He was always trying to kind of create. He tried a couple of very clever balls that didn't come off for him, but I think I was more impressed by him than by anyone else, perhaps, on the pitch, put it that way. But there's still a lot more to come from him. Who would you say? Who's it for you?
I think De Vrij. De Vrij was amazing. I would have loved to say Luis Alberto, but I thought he made too many mistakes. He had some good things, especially in the first half, a couple of very good dribblings. But then he missed the last second, to serve the ball to Immobile or to go and shoot on target. So, obviously, much better than the Luis Alberto of last year, but still, I didn't see the Luis Alberto I want to see. So, I think I'll go with a defender.
Well, fair enough. They've kept a clean sheet, so I suppose they've actually done their job today, which is more than the rest of them can say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, we can wrap it up here and hope that against Chievo will be a much better match.
Yeah, well, it has to be, really. It can't get much worse than tonight in terms of frustration. Yes, it is a point, like you said, so it's not the end of the world. But perhaps the reason we're kind of so down about it is that it is Spal and we did beat Juventus last weekend. So fair enough. But yeah, Chievo, new challenge, and we keep going ahead, and who knows what would have happened in a week's time, transfer-wise as well, so should be a lot to discuss by then.
Yeah, and we're still unbeaten, huh?
Still unbeaten, yeah.
Still unbeaten.
Still got a very good defensive record as well.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much, Alistair, and talk with you next week, and please rest this time, okay?
I'll try my best, yeah. See you next week.
Ciao.